Hi, everyone. Catherine Mattice-Zundel here, founder and CEO of Civility Partners. I'm here today with Gary Ware. So nice to have you, Gary. I'm really excited about this conversation. Gary is the founder of Breakthrough Play, and he's the self-proclaimed creative catalyst with a decade of experience as a performer in improv theater. And after he was feeling a little burnt out after chasing his success and happiness, he realized he needed to play more, which I can't imagine you weren't already playing because you've got such a smile and a fun personality. But Gary works with teams to unlock their creativity, confidence, and collaboration with experiential methods based in improvisation and play. So thanks again, Gary, for being here.
Yeah, my pleasure. Yay. Thank you for that amazing welcome.
I love the sound effects in the background.
Thank
So,
you.
as you know, I am a consultant focused on toxic work environments, and so clients call me when they're seeing some toxic things either bubble up or it's already hit the fan, and they're needing to make some changes. So, I was really curious to hear from you. What kind of clients are calling you? Are these people who just recognize that, their life has gotten mundane and they need to step it up a notch? Or I'm just curious about how clients come to find you and what inspires them to call you.
Yeah. So it's like one of those situations where people realize they have a challenge and then they're like, all right, how do we solve this? So I typically work with companies in one of a few stages. They're just getting started
Mhm.
and they're getting to that inflection point where their culture is sort of being tested. The wheels are about to fall off and they're like, all right, we need to do something to bring everything back together, gel everything back together. So that's one
Right.
situation. Is usually like startups that are in hyper growth mode. Also, it's companies where they feel a bit stagnant, where they're like, man, we're losing top talent. Why are they leaving?
Mhm.
This used to be a good place to work. What's going on here? And a lot of times they do have challenges like toxicity, but the funny thing is they don't realize it until we have a session and then they're like, oh, that's why people are leaving. And then the third, and this is what I love, these are the people that get it. These are the
Mhm.
people that already have high performing teams. They have strong cultures. They realize that, yes, we need to work hard, but we need to play hard. And they believe in growth. And so they are already doing these things. They already have a budget for training. This is regular. It's like, those are the people that hire a personal trainer and
Yeah.
they're already fit. But they realize, like, oh, I need someone that's going to help me keep
I need a
going.
little
So,
more muscle here. Yeah.
yeah, I need a little bit of tone. So, yeah.
Okay. That's cool. I'm with you. I like the clients that are already doing pretty well and wanting to create an even better culture. But my passion is to make sure everybody feels good at work. So I got to take on those toxic environments as well. I'm curious about Zoom. Are you able to do some improvs and fun play Zoom activities? How's it been going with everybody remote?
It is. And one of the things that I learned from my skills in improv, we have this phrase, play the scene that you're in.
Hmm.
When we're performing on stage and it's completely made up, we're co-creating this environment. Yes, everyone wants to be in that amazing scene that is completely funny, that it is rocking and rolling. But
Hmm.
sometimes you step out on stage and you get an offer and you're like, what do I do with that? And I feel like 2020 is one of those scenes where we had such high hopes in January and then all of a sudden here we are. And so I found myself at this crossroads where I had been accustomed to doing these trainings in person. Yes, I have experimented a little bit with virtual, and I know some people that have done it, but I personally hadn't had that experience.
Hmm.
And so I, just like any curious person, I was, at first I was a little bummed. I was like, what am I going to do? Uh, what's going on here? And then
That way.
I brought that childlike wonder of curiosity and experimentation, and
Uh-huh.
then I started inviting people on Zoom for recess, and we started playing some of my favorite games that normally take place in person, and we were
Mhm.
adapting, and we were figuring out how can this work in this virtual environment, and yeah, it works, and some games, in my opinion, are even more fun and exciting online in this virtual environment, just because you can play around with the technology a bit.
Okay. We'll have to talk offline because we're doing a monthly game night in my networking group, and I am the game person and I'm running out of ideas. So
Game
hopefully,
Master.
and it looks like Maria Hatfield knows both of us. We have another mutual connection. She's commented to say, hi. Hi, Maria.
Hey!
And
I,
I see you have a question, and I will get to your question. I promise you that. So, so tell me about how what you're doing is essential for mental health, because I'm sure it is, and we're all stressed out right now, and 2020 has been hard. So maybe we could all use a little bump in our mental health. So talk to me about how play and mental health are correlated.
yeah. So first and foremost, I just want to talk about stress.
Mm-hmm.
When we have stress, when we have the right stress, it's good, because when you have the right stress, it propels you into action. Think
Mm-hmm.
about this. You have been working on a project, it's deadline, you've been procrastinating, you get that stress of like, uh-oh, if I don't get this done right away, something bad's going to happen. So that propels you into action.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that, the stress and the hormones that come with that, cortisol and adrenaline, was never meant to be a long-term thing.
Mm-hmm.
It was just meant to, like, fight, flight, or freeze. All right, let's do something. Boom. However, with all that is going on, with the pandemic, the civil unrest, the environment, all that stuff,
Everything.
everything, it's putting a lot of stress on people. They are having, and then on top of that, you're trying to juggle working from home, kids are in the other room, everything. It's so much going on. So you get all this cortisol that's running through your body and adrenaline, and on long term exposure to that, it lowers your immune system. It causes you to make rash decisions, and we're probably not sleeping and doing the things that we need. And so the benefits of play, there's so many different facets of play, but one that in this situation that is very beneficial for rejuvenation, for our well-being, it activates the parasympathetic nervous system. And what that is our rest and digest. That slows the heart rate, that makes us more clear, that gets us into that state of creativity that will allow us to be able to respond to what's happening. And so that's why it's important. However, this is the other thing. When you're in that state of paranoia and whatnot, the last thing you want to do is play. Like, you have the reptile brain firing, and your brain thinks you're in danger. So your brain is not going to be like, I think we should play right now. And so
Right.
that's why you need to have interventions. That's why you need to have people that have your back. That's why you need to schedule things that will activate the parasympathetic nervous system, so that you can have a clear mind, so that you can parent to the best of your ability, so that you can work to the best of your ability.
Okay, now that makes sense. I have heard that short stress is good for us and helps us overcome challenge and makes us a better person, but that prolonged stress can be pretty ugly for us. So that leads me to another question, because during periods of prolonged stress, you said our immune system wears, but so does our ability and energy to maintain professionalism. Sometimes we get more short, we're not sleeping, as you said. So I am very aware that things like workplace bullying or even just instability and unhappiness is probably really bleeding into relationships at work. So is play something, and improv, is that something that a company could bring in to help minimize some of that, bullying or exclusive behavior that may be coming from the stress?
Yes, and I'll explain a story.
Okay.
So first and foremost, I like to say, don't hate the player, hate the game, because yes, there are some people where it's like there's something wrong here. But a lot of times, I like to say, no one went into a company, accepted a job saying, you know what, I'm going to be the biggest a-hole there is. I'm going to come in here, I'm going to wreak havoc. But however, there are environments that breeds that.
Right.
Just like how we get mold when we have moist and, all these things. So we have these environments that people think that, oh, we're doing everything right because we're optimized for tactical performance, by having these incentivations and stuff like that. And then before long, people are, sort of bullying each other, stressed out. This pandemic is one of those things too, where, yeah, if you're on edge, you are going to you're like in a survival mode. So the cool thing about bringing in something like this is that one, it gives people dose, and dose is an acronym that stands for dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, and endorphins. And those are the neurochemicals that help you feel like you belong. That brings community, that brings focus, creativity, rejuvenation, and some of the cool things about these activities. Yes, these are activities that improvisers use to help them be funny and creative on stage, but these are also the same sort of activities that, when done properly, can help you have new insights into behaviors. And it's interesting because I like to say, and I heard this quote. Forgive me, I don't know who said it, but every villain is a hero in their own mind.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
sometimes you need a game, an activity to help someone see something from a different perspective. And the
Mm-hmm.
cool thing about play, this is the magic about play, is when you're invited into the playground and you play, your brain is like, oh, this is make believe. This is, not really happening. This is simulation. And so you drop all of your sort of thoughts and beliefs for the rules of the game.
Mm-hmm.
Let's take, for example, the game of golf. The
Mm-hmm.
game of golf is absurd. The goal of the game is to get a tiny ball into a hole 200 and something yards away with a stick. That's not efficient at all. However, when we play golf and we're invited to play golf, we take all of our sort of beliefs and we set it aside for the rules of the game.
Right. That's a good point.
And so with these games, they're like little mini interventions. And so I was running a workshop for a company, and there was this big executive that was playing the game. And the interesting thing about these games and how our brains work, our brains always is trying to connect the dots.
Mm-hmm.
And when you have the right sort of facilitation, you can invite people to think about how they showed up in this game, what challenges they had, what was good, what was not, because I have this belief: how you do anything is how you do everything. Then they
Yeah.
can start to see how that affects their behavior. So back to the story. So this executive was playing this game, and it was all about multitasking, and it's a really fun game to watch, like when you can do things in person,
Mm-hmm.
because people it's designed to induce stress. And so in a low stakes environment, people are like having a stress response, and and then we're talking about it. But the cool thing in that moment, on that day, this executive, they saw that game as their current work environment. And
Mm-hmm.
when we had the debrief, I said, "So what did you learn about this?" And this executive literally was almost in tears and said, "Oh my gosh, this reminds me of my day to day." Because in this game, the point of the game was that you can only focus on one thing at a time. So I put them in an environment where your main task is to focus on the person in front of you telling the story. However, I designed it so that you have distractions all around you, but you have to attend to them.
Okay.
And this executive in that moment saw that they set up their team so that everything has to funnel through them. Everything has to funnel through them. And they didn't empower their team to make choices, to make decisions. And no wonder no one is getting their work done. No wonder they are always stressed out. No wonder they have been snapping at everyone.
Right.
And in that moment, through that game, through that make believe, they were able to have this moment of clarity. And because when you play, you get oxytocin and serotonin, which is you feel like you belong, and then you trust people.
Mm-hmm.
This executive felt vulnerable expressing that, and then in that moment, they were able to brainstorm. Well, what else could happen? And so now you're exploring possibilities.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. We have some questions coming through, so I want
Yeah.
to know. I see your questions. I just wanted to comment, and then we'll get to some of these. I love what you're saying, Gary, because I specialize in executive coaching for people just like the one that you described. So these are always highly valued executives or top level people. who are seen as super valuable because of their skills, but they have lost their way in their leadership abilities and have started to become too aggressive or abrasive, or they're engaging in bullying behaviors. And you're right. I love that quote you gave. They don't wake up every morning excited to make people's lives miserable. They do feel like they're carrying the weight of the whole company on their shoulders a lot of the time. And so that stress is coming through in bullying. I mean, sorry, my phone keeps ringing. You just unpacked everything that I talk about with my coaching clients. So it's always fun to hear other perspectives, and like somehow we got to the same conclusion through our very different work. So I love that. So I do have a question. Someone asked, how do organizations, or how do you get organizations to embrace play if that's not their normal culture?
Um, yeah, you have to bring it in as a Trojan horse. So on my journey, at first I thought, oh, it's improv because I discovered improv, and when you do something that is completely amazing, you just want to tell everyone. So I was like, oh my gosh, I found this thing called improv. You should take an improv class. You should take an improv class. And the people are like, pump the brakes. What are you talking about, improv? And
Yeah.
so then I was like, all right, cool. Maybe it's not improv, but there's something about it. And I was like, oh, it's play. We need to play. And then I learned about the psychology of play and how when you can see the work as play, and when you can play, you're that much more effective at your work. And then I was like, you need to play. And then people were like, no, we're busy. We don't have time for play. And so I said, all right, regroup. What do you need? Well, we need training because, we have all of these essential skills that we need our teams to learn and develop. And because, they saw that list from LinkedIn of like the 5 essential skills that every, successful team needs, and it's creativity, collaboration, emotional intelligence, all those things. And I was like, that's it.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm a trainer. And then I'm like, I come in with, with these games that essentially play. But the cool thing is, even in Zoom. So I was curious on how this would be in Zoom, because normally I would come in, I'll do a 2.5 hour training, which is mixing up all these modalities, and we're learning and we're playing, and it goes by like that. Like 2.5 hours is like, people are like, what? We're done? I'm like, yeah, we're done. And then I was like, is this going to happen the same on Zoom? And sure enough, I keep hearing people telling me, man, I wish all Zoom meetings were like this. And so the cool thing is, then I can say, because they experienced it, imagine if you can do more of this, because this is a one-time thing and this was awesome. You all had an amazing experience. You feel more closer together. How can you create that into other environments so that you can be just as effective? And that's how I get companies, to start thinking about play. And then I bring in the research and the data about how when you have structured play, when you set it up in the right sort of context, people are more productive. And so
Yeah.
that's how we do it.
So you're like an improv ninja. You sneak in there and sneak in there and then get them to see the data. I love it. We are so on the same page. We're so on the same page. So this leads to another question. Somebody was asking about diagnosing culture and if there's any surveys around that. So do you do anything like that as part of your services? I have an answer from my end, but I'd love to hear your answer first.
Yeah. I like, first and foremost, as a facilitator, I tell people I am not a genius. My job is to bring out your genius. And so as an improviser, I'm all about collaboration and co-creation. So why reinvent the wheel if there are effective ways of diagnosing things? And so one of my favorite books that I am like the evangelist for, I should be getting so many commissions for this, because like I found this book and I love it, and there's science to back up things that I like intuitively thought. And it's the book Prime to Perform by Neil Dosey and Lindsay McGregor, and they have what they call TOMO, total motivation, and it's a 6-question survey that can help diagnose sort of motivation. And if you can optimize for the direct motivators, which is play, purpose, and potential, you can get these high performing teams that are adaptive, that actually have citizenship and care for each other, and they're not cutthroat. Because when you optimize for the indirect motivators, which
Mhm.
is emotion, what's it called? It's emotional pressure, economic pressure, and inertia.
Right.
That is great for tactical performance. So, like by giving someone a little bit of pressure, like, "Hey, I'm going to be disappointed if you don't do this," or your bonus is on the line. Yes, they will perform tactically, but they're not going to be adaptive. They're not going to think creatively, like in a global pandemic, or they are not going to like support their coworkers because like, oh, why should I support them, because if I do, then I'm not going to get my bonus. Whereas like you need everyone sort of rowing in the same direction. So
Mhm.
that is like my go-to,
Okay.
and it's worked. It supplements the work that I do because I have teams. Hey, go take this as a free survey. Let me
Yeah.
know. Let me know how it shows up. Then we start to implement some of the trainings that I do, and then they do the work, and then they take another one, and then they show the difference.
Okay.
And it's more of a diagnosis. It's not like a in sentence. It's like, hey, this is where we are right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Say the name of the book again, and we'll make sure we post it in the comments for
Oh yeah, yeah. It's called Prime to Perform, and
Brian.
there's a subtitle about the science around total motivation. But it's an amazing book,
Isn't it funny how books always have a short title and then
right?
my first book is called Back Off! Exclamation. Your guide to ending bullying at work. We also do climate assessments. We approach it quite differently because of the nature of our work, and our climate assessments are all very tailored to the organization. So I know there's a ton of, someone mentioned Denison or something, there's a ton of organizations out there that have created climate assessments, and they're sort of standard. But we really believe that every organization has its own problems, and that you don't want a survey creator telling you what you should know, that you need an outsider who takes the time to dig in your culture to then figure out what it is that you need to know. So we really create tailored surveys to make sure we're getting what we need. So I have a question from Safa. The question is, how can I get my staff to respect deadlines?
Great question. And my first instinct, again, I have this belief that environment is everything.
Uh-huh.
And again, I don't know, if people immediately go in and like, forget deadlines. You know what? I'm doing my own thing. Like, it's just one of those things. Maybe people have the best intention.
Mm-hmm.
And my advice would be to explore what is the environment that is creating them to not respect the deadline.
Right.
Is it, they think that they can do everything, and then they take on too much, and then they find themselves overloaded. And then as a result, so they over promise and under deliver.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's just more of a exploration of, what's going on. Because the cool thing about behavior is that if you can understand the environment and you can make some subtle tweaks in the environment, you can have mass sort of growth, in performance.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And I would agree with you. That sounds like a coaching conversation to me,
Right?
to know what's happening and is there something you can do to help, to the individual who asked that question. So my last question for you, I love to end with some tangible takeaways. So what's one or two or three things that we could do to bring more play into our own lives?
Yeah, to our own lives. So a mentor of mine, her name is Gwen Gordon.
Mm-hmm.
She is freaking amazing. She used to work for IBM, as like one of those. She had like a fellowship, and then was helping with innovation. She worked on Sesame Street as a Muppeteer. She's completely wacky and fun and playful, and so she had this thing called the Seven Paths to Play, and it's interesting because as adults, or as humans, we are wired to play. We are what are called neotenous creatures in that we retain our juvenile features even through old age. But I like to say all adults are just kids who atrophied, and so we forgot how to bring that back. And so we need the guide. That's why like those lists like on BuzzFeed, like the 5 ways to do X, Y, and Z.
Mhm.
And the thing with adults is that because if you see play as a juvenile thing, if you see play as a waste of time, you're not going to reap the benefits. So I like to say the first thing is you need to change your perspective, but a lot of times people are just set in their ways. And so I like to say, all right, how about you just experience it, benchmark, how you feel before and after, and then you're going to be more likely to do it. So how you do that
Yeah.
is schedule time. What are those moments where you need those pick me ups? Is it 2:30? Where you're starting to get the little sleepies when you feel like you need a little bit of coffee. Is it first thing in the morning? Just to get you out of bed. And have those moments where you just have 5 minutes to play, and play is a very personal thing.
Hmm.
So what may be play for me may not be play for you. So I like to say, well, what are those things that bring you joy? And how can you follow your compass of joy? And during those 5 or 10 minutes or whatever the case may be, you do something and time box it. I know you may want to, it's going to feel so good, you may want to keep going, but limit it, because this is the thing. You get the benefits and then boom, your brain is set up. Now you can, jump on in. And will not be surprised if during those moments of play, you come up with amazing ideas because your brain is still working on stuff.
Hmm.
And creativity happens when your brain is in the default mode. And when in order to get in the default mode, you have to get into that daydreamy sort of like play like state.
Right, right. I'll just say my 2 cents. I have a 6-year-old, and it is fun to see the eyes or the world through her eyes and get down at her level. And we saw a praying mantis the other day, and normally I would have like shoo, but I actually picked it up and let it was on my hand, and that was all right. Once it started crawling up my arm, I was like, get off me! But it's fun to play Barbies with her. Sometimes we'll just sit on the living room floor and color, and so if you have kids, you have a natural play person who can
Playmate.
lead you. Yeah, playmate, someone who can lead you into the world of play pretty easily. So,
Word.
well, thanks so much, Gary, for being with me today. And let us know where we can, or tell everyone where they can get a hold of you, and we'll post that in the comments as well.
Cool. Well, since we're on LinkedIn, I am on LinkedIn. Hey, you can look me up. We can connect there. My website's breakthroughplay.com. I have a number of resources on there. I also like to play on Instagram every now and then. And easy to find. It's just my full name, Gary Ware.
Okay. Yeah, I always say, just Google me. You'll find me
Just
anywhere.
Google me. You'll find me.
Yeah, I will. I'll close with one other thing. I was watching your promo video, and a woman said something that really resonated with me. So I'm going to share it with all of you. She said that, normally when you go to networking events or work, you're pretty buttoned up, and she says, well, I'm in my heels and everyone's in their dresses and their suits. And so we're all really surface level at that point, and play forces you to drop out of that a little bit and come down to more of your normal, regular self. So it can be a great way to connect with others. And I really thought that was a great point of view, that we walk around with a shell on, and that play could help crack that a little bit. So thanks again, Gary. And I hope everyone has a great day. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. This has been a delight.
I love it. Love it. And I'm going to call you. We got a whole lot.